It's not as good as the mulch that's been made from a bunch of different materials instead of basically one, but it is still good. And the mulch that you get out at the brush dump, there's nothing at all wrong with that material. I would suggest that if you are spreading it, that you wear gloves when you do so, preferably plastic or rubber gloves. We had a customer in a couple of years ago, and she discovered the hard way that the mulch that she got out at the brush dump, somebody had ground up a whole bunch of poison ivy in that bunch, and she was out there spreading it around under the shrubs. You can imagine the rest. But the mulches you buy, granted, are better. They're made from more different things. They probably have some pretty good compost in them, but all mulch is good mulch. I mean, on my ranch, I cut a lot of cedar. I don't burn it. I run it through a chipper, and I can't tell you how many loads of mulch I've spread around in the past 2 or 3 weeks. First question over here. Yes, sir.
Do you have to be concerned about oak wilt?
No, sir.
From the brush?
No, none whatsoever. Oak wilt is spread through spores, but these spores are very short-lived, and when they dry out, they're dead. There is, I would say, about a 1 in 100,000 chance that you would ever find a live oak wilt spore, and the chance of that spore then being transferred to a cut surface is virtually zero. Good question. Yes, ma'am.
How would you rate oak leaves as mulch?
Oak leaves are great mulch. They're better when they're ground up. But Mother Nature has been, that's Mother Nature's way of mulching. When you stop and think about what a tree does, it's taking up all these minerals from way down deep in the ground, it's putting them in the leaves, and then it's putting them back on the surface of the ground. That's how minerals that were once 10 feet down on the ground come back up on the surface, where your grass and other shallow-rooted plants can make use of them. So what do? We rake up the leaves and throw them away. No, that's the biggest mistake in the world. Yes, ma'am.
Her bringing it up about the oak leaves, I think that they release too much acid into the soil.
If we could do anything that would make nutrients more available in our soil, it would be to put more acid in it. One of the great benefits from compost is it releases a lot of humic acids. You know, if it, and they don't release any acid to speak of. Pecan and walnut leaves maybe do some, but I'm sorry they don't do more. That would be a good thing rather than a bad thing that would happen, but it doesn't happen. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry to ask, but I don't know who you are.
Not sure why she's asking. This lady's on with the IRS machine.
You said there's no thing
No. My name's Bob Webster. My business partner, Roberta Church, and I started Shades of Green 28 years ago, so that's who I am and where I come from. I grew up in the florist business. My training is as a research biologist. Been in the nursery business most of my adult life, so you get a pretty broad source of information.
I knew you knew what you're talking about.
If you look like you have a sense of humor, I'm going to harass you. That's probably Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. I have a lot of pine needles. Will that work also?
Sure.
Or is there something in it that may be too strong for them?
No.
My husband burns them.
Yeah. Waste of energy. Think of that when you have a fire. You're creating a lot of energy. Now you know why. You're breaking all those carbon bonds.
I wanted to save them for mulch. And he said, oh, that's not good mulch.
It's outstanding mulch. Pine bark is not especially good because it's high in some other worse things. Pine bark is not especially good, but pine needles, they put it in bales and sell it.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Who I?
Yeah.
If you're buying mulch, what do you recommend?
I recommend what they call a living mulch, which is just a good mulch that has some compost mixed in.
That's the name of it?
Your living mulch.
Living
Yeah.
mulch.
I think the best mulch out there comes from New Earth Soils and Compost. It's also sold by Stone and Soil Depot, which is where I buy it, and a number of other places. Number 2 would be Fertile Garden Supply, makes a good mulch. Number 3 would be Gardenville. Yes, ma'am.
Is it possible to mulch too many oak leaves into the lawn? We've got a lot of oak trees and a lot of leaves.
Well, that's a good question. Your lawn grass needs sunlight. And if you bury the grass so much that the sunlight's not hitting the leaf blades, that's not a good thing. But if you were to put it in a compost pile and let it break down, there'd be no way that you could have too much. But if your trees are that thick, your grass is not going to do very well underneath them to begin with. But the only danger of having too much in your flower beds, no way you could have too much. But if you put it on your grass so thick that the grass blades were not up where they could get sunlight. That would be not good for the grass. Good
Well,
question.
I've got another bed in the front. Can I just let the oak leaves that fall there leave?
Absolutely.
Stay there and then put the mulch over that? It won't hurt
Absolutely.
anything?
And if you get enough of them, you don't need to add any mulch.
Okay.
If you want them to break down faster, spray them down with a little Medina Plus, spray them down with a little molasses.
But I
Good
want it
energy.
to look nice though too, so.
That's fine. Yeah, just put some mulch on top of it. Be ideal. Yes, ma'am.
That goes with my question, how do you make it look good? Do you have to scoop up all the leaves, crush them up and shove them back? Or do you mulch on top of it because it looks bad?
The ideal
Yeah, it
thing,
looks like
that's
you
up
keep
here.
them up
You know, that doesn't look bad to Mother Nature. That may look bad to you, but that doesn't look bad to Mother Nature. Ideal thing would be to run them through your lawnmower and then put them back. But if for some reason you object to the look of leaves, you've just been conditioned to what looks good or what looks bad. But put a little bit of, of just a more attractive mulch on top of it. And that won't hurt a thing. Yes, ma'am.
Well, that man's been trying to get you for a long time.
Okay, I'll answer his next. Thanks for coming. Yes, sir.
Almost past the subject, I guess, but I'm bothered with a lot of scrub oak running.
Okay, oak sprouts, the little sprouts that come off the root system of trees, that's what happens when sunlight hits tree roots that are very shallow. Again, I'm not going to ascribe conscious thought to trees. What that tree chemically is thinking is, hey, sunlight's hitting my root system, my top must have broken off, let's grow a new tree. Why do you suppose that there is more sunlight hitting the roots? Because we've gotten up and pruned that tree and taken away what would normally be keeping the ground dark underneath. You go out to a pasture and you see one of those huge live oaks that spreads out, 150 feet and nothing's growing on the ground underneath it because it's so dark, you'll never see, oak sprouts there. Make the soil darker, you'll have a lot fewer oak sprouts. You can do that by letting your grass grow taller and thicker. You can do that by putting down mulch. Anything that makes the soil darker will greatly reduce the number of oak sprouts you have. Yes, sir.
Are you supposed to keep the mulch up against the tree?
No, you're supposed to keep it away from the tree trunk. You don't want anything that holds a lot of moisture right against a tree trunk. Yes.
You said you put molasses on the top of leaves and it helps break it down?
Molasses is an energy source. Molasses creates microbial activity, and it's microbial activity that breaks down the leaves.
So you put it in a spray, quarter one or something,
Sure.
to that, and then just spray it on the leaves and they'll break down.
It'll break down a whole lot faster. Put it in the compost pile, they'll break down a whole lot faster. If you're fighting, I had a call this morning, somebody fighting prickly pear cactus. Just break it loose from the ground, soak it with molasses, it'll rot before it can sprout again. Molasses is an energy source, and it's useful for so many things. If you come to the vegetable seminar next week, we'll be talking about getting rid of spider mites with seaweed and molasses. Molasses activates all kinds of beneficial microbes, but don't use it too strong or you'll burn. You'll create too much microbial activity. For most plants, about a tablespoon per gallon is as strong as you want to go with
Break
molasses.
up the leaves, you put it in a plastic bag, you put some molasses in there.
Well, everything's right there except the plastic bag. Plastic bag cuts off oxygen, and if you don't have oxygen, you get anaerobic decomposition, which means it stinks. Pile them up in a pile somewhere and spray them down with molasses. Okay, one more.
Next thing about the oak tassels, are those too strong to mulch into the grass?
Oh,
too?
absolutely. Very high in proteins. They're outstanding materials. They make good fertilizer.
Okay, good deal.
Yes, sir.
You were talking about not making them too deep. Our oak tree in the front, the last time I measured, was 105 inches.
Very good.
The oak leaves were very heavy yesterday. Now, it took me 3 times with the lawnmower, but you cannot even see the leaves. All
Yeah.
you see is the grass.
That'd be bad for your grass, but wonderful for your tree. That's how Mother Nature's been building soil for a few million years. Yeah, there's a real funny story I'll have to reproduce sometime. It's a story of God looking down over creation and asking one of the saints what's going on down there. And they're talking about all the dumb things that man has done, with the cutting up everything. And he said, oh, well, what are they doing with all those grass and weeds? Are they baling for hay? And it's no, they're putting it in plastic bags on the curb so they can go out and buy hay, and so they can go out and buy mulch. I can't believe the number of people in the hill country that go out and burn their cedar and then go down the road and buy cedar mulch. Anyway, let's move on to a couple other topics unless anybody has more question about.
Is this just plain molasses from the grocery store? Is that what
It's a
you're
little
talking about?
expensive from the grocery store, but yeah, it's just plain molasses. Yeah. You ever eat molasses when you really want a burst of energy? It's exactly the same thing the microbes do. It's, by the way, it's a